What's up, everyone? Welcome back to District Nats, episode 1.9, I believe. It's been a minute. If you miss me, appreciate you. I'm Nick. You can follow me on Twitter at the Coach Moose. He is Trey. You can follow him on Twitter at reverse 2Rs, 2Ss, and the show at District BSB. We are back with District Nats and checking in on a team that has been better as of late, although May has not been their best month. But we'll talk about that and more on today's episode. But first, Trey, what's going on?
Nick, it wasn't a completely soul-suckingly horrible week of Nationals baseball this week, and I, for one, am just, I feel like that was very refreshing because it was pretty rough last week, and it's been, the last 2 weeks has been not so great, but they finally found something this week, a little bit more offense than has been the standard, and the pitching has maintained its pretty good baseline, and so that's kind of been the key to me is, the pitching's kind of been pretty consistent. It's whenever this team finally puts a little bit of offense into it is when they win. So they did that this week and went 3-3. So not too bad. I'll take 500 any day of the week.
Yeah, only their second series win of the month. So certainly needed that against the Mariners. They dropped the series to the Twins. So I haven't watched like every out of every single game or anything like that, but I have been checking in, and it seems I'm gonna get torched for this, but it is what it is. I'll get torched by a certain side of the fan base for this. It seems like this is just who the Nats are, and like they're not a very good team, but they can win series. And I get that kind of describes most teams around baseball, but what I mean by that is I think you might agree with me. The Nats got great pitching in the first two games, and then every fifth day, we just know Patrick Corbin. Yeah. It is what it is. But even he pitched great today.
Compared to himself.
Right. He went 6 innings, gave up 3. Technically, it's a quality start. I don't know.
Did he give up 3 earned or 4 earned?
It's 3 earned, 4 runs.
Okay, yeah. That's so quality. You're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That counts.
Even though he gave up 4, I think it's still a quality start.
That counts.
So, the pitching was great this series, but, what really happened this series was the Nats decided to hit home runs.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's when the few times that the coaching staff allows them to hit home runs, this team doesn't look miserable.
Yeah.
But then they fall into this whatever pattern, lull, what have you, where the offense just goes dead, and that's what we've seen the majority of the month. Mm-hmm. Aside from the 1 12-run game against the Twins, for the better part of 3 weeks, it's just been a max of 5 runs, but that's when the game's already out of hand. A max of 3 runs, but we lose 4-3 or 2-3 or what. It's been frustrating. Mm-hmm. But every now and then the Nats will have these patches of, dare I say, scrappy baseball, where it's just they are winning games.
And you say scrappy, and they will scrap to win some games, but mostly what happens is they hit a home run or something. It has to do with a homer is when they have these bigger peaks in the offense. It's kind of like it's like a roller coaster. You hit the top and they can do that. They can get to that top, but they're mostly going down.
It's frustrating as a fan, and I like to think I know baseball pretty well. It's frustrating to exactly. It's frustrating to see a team clearly have a positive, for lack of a better word, I'm gonna say vibe. Positive vibe because of the home run hitting, and then the coaching staff still be adamantly against pulling the ball in the air. It's there's such a disconnect.
Yeah, it is.
And we on outside looking in, we can make shit up all we want about the clips you see of C.J. Abrams being told not to pull the ball, which is still mind-boggling to me. But this team is better when they're hitting home runs, as is every other team in baseball. It's hitting home runs should be your should be your goal. Like you're a team. You're a major league team. This is the way I look at it. You're not a 13U travel team that like is just you're too small to be on the big field. You are a major league team capable of hitting home runs. Yes, that might not be your strength. That might not be, what you want to play to, but like if you can hit home runs, you should probably try to hit home runs. That's kind of where I'm at with this. And it's like we finally got a taste of the long ball, and it's addictive. Like I want to hit more home runs. I want to have good things to talk about with this team. I don't want to be like, oh my God, this coaching staff is just a wet blanket all the time. So that was kind of my big takeaway from this series in particular, just because it was, our first series win in weeks. But
and the whole week pretty much they hit better. They hit homers. Like they did hit. They had at least one good game against the Twins where they hit some homers, and it led to a win. Yeah. Wow, what a concept!
Yeah, shocker. Shocker. So let's go position by position. It's been a minute since we've done this, but I think it's appropriate since, here on May 26th when we record this, the team is a lot different from April 10th or whatever, the last time we did this. So we'll go position by position, kind of quickly give our thoughts and just updates on how things go. I am going to switch it up though, because there's no, we'll start normally.
Okay.
We'll save that conversation for the end. Okay. We'll start at the catching position. There's been a lot of discourse recently about Drew Millis, who actually isn't even on the roster right now. He's in AAA, but he's performing really, really well. And I think on most teams of the national status, mainly being rebuild, non-playoff team, he would probably already be up. But just because the Nats have already committed so much to Keibert Ruiz and Riley Adams did get off to a good start this year, like there's just not a spot for him, even though if they really wanted to, they could make room. But it doesn't seem like they really want to, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. There's been a lot of discourse on Drew Millis, like just we need to give him a shot because the catching position has been so bad, quite frankly. Ruiz has finally started to get his bat going, which kind of helps ease the blow of he's just I'm ready to kind of say it, like he's just not really a good defensive catcher. There's been times where he's not bad.
Yeah, it's like his ceiling as a defensive catcher is average. Then
he's not Yachty back there. He's not Real Muto.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't mean he's a bust. It doesn't mean the contract is bad. The contract, AAV wise,
honestly, regardless of what happens, it's like they didn't actually pay him that much.
So it's like I'm not worried about that. I just think, he's not going to be Adley. He's not going to be one of the game's best. But he does need to hit to maintain any semblance of value. So that's one. Riley Adams, I think it's just the case he needs regular at bats.
Yeah,
and I think that
agree.
applies to a lot of people. But like, he'll get 4 at bats every 6 games, and then he'll go 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, and people are like, oh, he sucks. I'm just like, okay, yeah, he had a bad game, but he hasn't played in a week. So it's like, it's hard to tell. The first time we ever saw him get regular at bats when Ruiz was out, he was very solid.
He started that stretch well. He did kind of come down, but he started that stretch very well.
Yeah, he was very solid. So I've said this before, and it kind of I bring up Drew Millis because this kind of lends itself to that. Riley Adams is just not a backup catcher. Because one, he needs regular at bats,
and he's not a good defender.
And 2, he's not a good defender. He's even worse than Ruiz is. He threw someone out today, but it was the first time.
Yeah, it was actually more. I would say I'd give more credit to Luis Garcia on that one too, because he made a nice tag. I will say Ruiz this week. You mentioned his bat got going. Yeah. He made a little bit of an adjustment in his approach.
Oh,
he did. Yes. He cut the leg kick out.
Oh, that's right. Now that you say that,
completely. And he homered, so maybe he doesn't need to kick his leg.
So badly needed.
Yeah, you know what? I think the reason they did that is to get his head to stop moving. It seemed like he just wasn't able to square anything up because his timing was off, because he was not able to have a steady bat. He wasn't able to feel the barrel. And I feel like with this more of a steady no leg kick approach, he's really able to lock in on the pitch and get the barrel to where it needs to be to make the right contact. And he had a big pinch hit single today. He did not start, Riley Adams did, but he had a big pinch hit that loaded the bases. Obviously, the Nats ended up losing this game anyways, but at the time, big pinch hit, and then obviously CJ came up big, but hopefully this is the beginning of the good stretch for Ruiz, because he needs to have a good stretch to reinforce that he deserves to be on the roster right now, because
it's been tough. But like if you go back to last year, his first half wasn't as bad as he's been this year.
Yeah.
But like it was bad, and I think he hit over 300 in the second half of the year. So it's like, give him time. I'm not ready to make any sort of snap judgment on Ruiz, but I do concede he needs to hit in order for this to be stomachable.
Yeah.
So it is nice to see him start hitting. I would like to see them call up Millis at some point, because he's by far and away the best defender, but I do get it's kind of a tough situation to navigate because someone gets left out. And if the argument is you need to get Riley Adams consistent at bats, calling up Millis doesn't necessarily immediately help that, because you don't want Millis to just sit there either. Mm-hmm. So it is a little bit of a tough situation. Not tough, complex situation. But for right now, if Ruiz is hitting, then this all becomes a moot point, because no one really cares what your backup catcher is doing.
Yeah,
you only care about the backup catcher when your starter sucks.
Exactly. There you go.
So let's move to first base. Speaking of a position that sucks.
Yeah, honestly, we don't even have to spend that much time here. It's just like...
Yeah.
It's just like...
You're not going to get
ew.
anything for Joey Gallo. I know he
hit a homer today.
Outfield / first.
He did.
You're just not going to get anything for Joey Gallo. And I
45% K rate.
I know Joey Meneses homered recently, but like, can we please? I'm tired of writing about it. I'm tired of talking about it. Like, Joey Meneses does not belong in a major league roster.
Yeah, and there is a potential. So we do have something happening that could potentially mean the end of the Meneses
talk about it.
Experience.
Yep.
With Lane Thomas returning eventually, but
yeah. And the thing with Meneses, I didn't even realize this. He technically can be optioned.
Yeah, no, he's got options.
If they're super worried about like losing him to another club, like you don't have.
That's exactly what I've been saying. I mean, I think I've been tweeting it, and I don't know if I actually said it on the show, but I've been tweeting it that like he's got options. If they really believe that he's part of the future, then you need to send him down to fix his swing so that he can actually produce. Like, I mean, other than that, you're just hurting him. Like, keeping him up.
AAA Rochester has made guys like Travis Blankenhorn and Alex Call look like Barry Bonds.
Maybe he just needs a confidence boost, though. You never know. It could be a confidence. I don't think it is, but maybe they could see it from that perspective. Like, hey, give him a confidence boost by sending him to AAA. Maybe hit some homers and get the ball elevated a little bit and see what happens there. But yeah, like it would make sense to option him, because then you don't have to DFA anyone. And like you need all the depth you can get, especially since this is the year of the freaking injury across MLB. Exactly. So I think it would make sense. But
Joey Gallo screams Corey Dickerson to me. Like trade deadline passes, no takers, 100%. DFA him. So that just they tried. I was fine with the signing when they made it, but I don't think anyone's surprised by the results either. Luis Garcia, I would say at this point is probably co-MVP with CJ Abrams.
Yeah.
He's been great. He's not only has been great, he's been super steady, whereas CJ has really dipped recently. He finally homered today, and that was a big one.
On a pulled fly ball, by the way.
Yep, there it is. Wow. But Luis Garcia, he's had ups and downs, as does everyone during the MLB season, but like he's been super steady, and his growth from last year to this year is I don't know exactly what might have sparked it, because even at the start of this year they weren't like super high on him based on what they were saying, but whatever happened, whether it was the demotion, whether it was a meeting behind closed doors that the press wasn't privy to, like whatever it may be, Luis Garcia, like credit where credit is due to whoever deserves the credit. Like, he's been much better.
Yeah, and he's cut out the mental mistakes. Like, his, young players make mental mistakes. It's not just Luis, but like he was starting to have them too often, especially base running and in the field. That has not happened at all.
It's a little
this year.
easier. Yeah, it's a little easier to get by with that when you have a teammate that's even more well known for those kind of mistakes.
Yeah, that's also true. But yeah, no, he's completely cut that out so far this year, and I think what you said about him being steady. He's definitely been the most consistent Nationals player this year, both on offense and I think even on defense. Although Jacob Young has probably been the best defender overall.
Yeah,
Luis Garcia's defense at second base has been much improved. He's, by the numbers, probably average in terms of range and arm strength and everything. But he makes the play when he can make the play.
If he was more athletic, he'd be better.
He's mastered the slide and throw, and that is something he looks smooth as hell, especially going to his left now. The slide, the get up and chuck it, man. He's been good, and the throwing was a problem for him as a shortstop, and even sometimes as a second baseman. I don't know if he's even made a throwing error this year.
Knock on wood. The Luis Garcia shortstop experiment. Oof.
Dude,
something I never want to remember.
Yeah, that's going to be one for the history books later down the line when we have future generations studying the 2022 Nationals.
Yeah, Luis Garcia was your shortstop? Yeah,
why?
Why?
Why would you ever do this?
Yeah. Moving on to C.J. Abrams. I'm not worried about Abrams, but I wish they would just let him pull the ball. That's kind of just what it comes down to. I just wish they would let him pull the ball.
Hopefully today was the kind of the reset because he's been in this slump. But he'll be fine. I think.
Yeah, I'm not worried.
You generally if you hit a stretch this bad, it's gonna come up, and then hopefully the upswing is real good, like it was at the beginning of the year. But you definitely saw the effects of that on the offense. We haven't won a series in 20 days until today, and during those 20 days, C.J. Abrams has not been good, and so basically what that tells you is that he was carrying the team for too long, and eventually that was not going to work. So that's where we always get into the depth conversation. You have to have other guys step up. Like a Jesse Winker, who's actually he also went in a big slump, and he's starting to work better at bats and get on base again. He had a homer against the Twins, I think, this week, but he's been on base. I believe they said 11 of his last, at least 11 times in his last 8 games, I think is what the stat was. So that's at least starting to get some steady on-base action there, because he was definitely hitting a rough patch. Yeah,
I think he was dealing with a shoulder, and then he was sick, so it could just be one of those stretches during the season where it just, shit happens.
Yeah.
I don't think his first month will be, extrapolated over a full season or anything like that, but, he has a 746 OPS if he needs to hit for a slightly higher average, but he's someone I can see sticking around for the entirety of the year.
Well, of course I'd love to trade him and get something, but you never know.
Right. Oh, as would I. I'm just saying
we've seen it before.
I don't think that, but I also don't think he'll be bad enough to move on from either.
Yeah,
but I'm also weirdly fine with that as well, because if you trade Winker, you're probably gonna get a flyer arm in single A, which isn't worth nothing, but I have a weirdly backwards view from my typical stance on Winker for whatever reason. Another free agent signing that we want to talk about, who's been the numbers aren't great, but in my mind, he's just kind of been fine, is Nick Senzel. Granted, he went 0 for today. His batting average dropped below 200, so, I might quickly change that stance. But, for a while there, he was doing great. But we knew the home run pace wasn't going to, stick. He hit, 5 home runs in, 8 at-bats or something absurd like that. and hasn't hit one since. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about Nick Senzel.
I'm worried. I'm in panic.
Oh, are
mode.
you?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
I'm not in panic mode because I was never high.
That's
on
true,
him
but like
to begin with.
that's a good point. But he is not working good at bats at all. The K rate is it's 25%, which for the Nationals is high. Obviously Gallo is kind of the outlier, but this
Gallo
is a team
skews the whole
that doesn't
thing.
strike out a ton, but he is striking out quite a bit. The thing that's saving him is the walk rate, 14% walk rate. So he is working counts, but that's not going to be enough. Unfortunately, he's just not a good. He doesn't have great bat to ball skills. It's just that simple.
Which is funny because that was his bread and butter coming.
I know, and it's just it is not translated, and I don't see. The only thing that he can really start trying to do is hit homers, I think, because might as well maximize the contact when you do make contact, I suppose.
And like the crazy thing is, like, that's a very viable option. Who's the guy in Tampa Bay that did that you put the
Paredes?
video about?
I love Paredes.
Yeah, if he went full Paredes and just always tried to hit home runs, like, he would have so much more value.
Start pulling the ball in the air. See what happens.
Yeah, but even still, like, his OPS plus is 104.
Yeah, he's still in like
his career.
Yeah, it's still in like a acceptable range right now. If you can get a nice stretch as well, because he's been in a slump too, so he's got to come back up if he wants to hang around.
Yeah, so basically the judgment from Moose has passed over Nick Senzel for now and is more targeted towards the Joey Meneses and others of the world. Mm-hmm. And then once that gets settled, then it'll come back to Nick Senzel for rejudgment.
Mm-hmm.
But let's move on. We talked about Winker. I don't know where to throw Rosario. We'll just talk about Rosario here. Am I allowed to say, like, the beginning of May was just a farce and, like, Eddie Rosario is who we thought he was?
I think there's some of that. I think I don't think his April indicates that he was actually that bad, and I don't think that his stretch in May indicates that he was actually that good. And he has started to come down, although he hit a crazy homer in the Mariners series. Like, it almost hit him. The pitch almost hit him, and he somehow kept it fair.
It was so far inside.
That was pretty crazy. But yeah, it's definitely, he had that 10-game stretch or whatever where it was like he brought his numbers back to actually looking somewhat salvageable. But
his WAR is almost 0 now.
Yeah,
for what it's worth.
He's doing. I'm keeping him over Meneses and Gallo right now, but it's like. He's got to turn it up again to start showing something. If he can have a good stretch over the next couple weeks, that would be really nice. Because then maybe we can trade him for somebody. Braves,
and that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at as well. If he can continue hitting these home runs, he's really the only one doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, in a weird backwards way, Eddie Rosario can be your Joey Gallo, where he doesn't hit for average, but he can hit.
That's kind of what he's doing right now, honestly.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, but we only have spot for one of those guys. So if it's not gonna be Joey Gallo, then get Joey Gallo out of here, you know.
And in fairness to Rosario, 182 BABIP. I mean, that is brutal. Like, you're not gonna. There is bad luck involved here as well. So, that's actually probably a good thing too. So if a team is looking at his base, like his under the hood numbers, they look a little bit better than his base numbers. So that's actually kind of good, in modern baseball, I'd say, to have the metrics instead of the base stats, because then they'll be like, oh, he'll clearly turn it around for us, which sometimes happens. Yeah. But yeah, he's just had a really, really weird season. Really weird.
Yeah, bizarre.
Yeah.
And the Nats were waiting for May to see what Rosario could do, because he's historically a slow starter. We're almost through May, and the numbers are better, but they're still not,
good.
Great. So, all right, let's move on to Jacob Young. For those that remember, I'm very high on Jacob Young for what he is. I've never said that Jacob Young is like a foundational piece or anything but I think he can be a very solid rotational outfielder, great defensively, can absolutely fly. And I think all of that still applies, even though he is enduring a little bit of a cold stretch recently. Great outfielder, can absolutely fly. I think what really bit him, and it's not really his fault, is Davey Martinez tried to make him the leadoff guy. It just doesn't work. Grant, I'm for trying it, and if he never bats leadoff for the rest of the season, cool. Like, then I won't keep bringing it up. But like,
he did it too many times.
He did it too many times, and moving CJ from the leadoff spot was dumb.
Yeah.
It was just dumb to begin with. So, it's not a huge sample size, but it's the sample we have. If you look at the splits, when he's batting first, it's 11 games, 47 plate appearances. He's batting .216 with a .659 OPS. When he's batting ninth, it's really first or ninth, that's really all he's ever hit, and that's fine. When he's batting ninth, he's hitting .309 in 24 games, 86 plate appearances with a .683 OPS. And I talked about the OPS, a couple weeks ago. Like, he's never going to have an insanely high OPS because he's pretty much a singles hitter. But like, his primary value is defense and, base running. If he's hitting for a 300 clip, that obviously means his on base percentage is going to be, pretty high as well. And then that's where he can really provide his value. So OPS is one of those stats where I typically go to it immediately, but for Jacob Young, I don't, because I just know that's not his strength. But overall, I would say, and we can kind of parlay this into our next conversation when we talk about Lane Thomas, I am starting to be concerned about Jacob Young in terms of his roster security.
Yeah.
Because I think the argument for keeping him could easily be applied to Victor Robles as well.
Yeah, which one? I think Young probably has options as well.
Yeah, that's my point. Is Robles doesn't, Young does, so they can kind of just take the easy way out and option Young. And I would hate it because you're punishing a guy for basically not being the worst player, right? I think it's a bad precedent to set. That being said, it's not like Jacob Young doesn't have things he needs to work on. Like, he's not good against righties, as is most of the team.
Yeah.
Like, he's only hitting .229 against righties versus .326 against lefties. So it's like he could get more, but like, he's also shown he's good enough to be an MLB caliber player as well. So again, I think it's just a bad precedent to set. And if you're only going to keep one of Young and Robles, what else do we need to see from Victor Robles to show that this ain't working? Like,
it's just not.
He's been abysmal.
He's a change of scenery candidate, and like, maybe he'll go somewhere and be awesome, and it might hurt a little bit, but like, at the end of the day,
we're not gonna get anything trade wise.
Exactly, like, it's over.
He'll get scooped up right away. I have no doubt about that. But we're also not going to get anything.
Sometimes you just have to take your L.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and I was gonna.
He's hitting
I was gonna say
87 this year. Like,
oh man, yeah. I was gonna say about Jacob Young.
What do you want to see?
Shoot, I had something I was gonna say about Jacob Young and I forgot. If I remember, I'll bring it back up.
Yeah. So, and now we can talk about that. Like, I guess just give your prediction. Like, my prediction, and it makes me sick to my stomach, but I think they're going to option Jacob Young tomorrow. Oh, well, when you're listening to this, the move will already have been made. We're recording Sunday night after the game. Davey Martinez said Lane's coming back tomorrow. Tomorrow being Monday, Memorial Day. So a corresponding move will be announced in the next 12 to 16 hours, and everyone will have already known. But I have just a really bad feeling in my gut that it's going to be Jacob Young, and I would release or option Meneses, Robles, Rosario, Gallo, all before I would option Jacob Young.
What I would do is I'd option Joey Meneses. What I think they will do, I'm predicting a DFA of Robles this time. I think it's time. I think it's time.
Okay.
Although I preferred Meneses to go down, but because I'm with you. You can't take Jacob Young out of this. Like, he's been too productive. He's like third on
Yeah.
the team in WAR. Like, I mean, like you can't just take
Yeah.
that off your team. Like,
It's a
and
bad
they're both
precedent
right
to
now.
set.
They're both fourth outfielders. So Jacob Young is the better fourth outfielder right now. So, I mean, I know what you're saying. He has options, and it could totally I could totally see them doing that, which would be so lame. But I think it's going to be Robles this time. That's what I'm going with.
The one for Manessa, so like, if for anyone listening to this, they're going to be like, oh, of course it's going to be Robles or Young because they're not going to carry 5 outfielders. Well, if you option DFA Meneses, Winker moves to DH, and then that frees up left field.
Also,
so really, you only have 4 outfielders.
They also brought up Trey Lipscomb to replace Joey Gallo earlier this year, so that they clearly don't care about that.
Yeah, don't get too caught up in the positions of it all. That was much more a thing when the DH didn't exist in the National League, but it's not so much now. So you're on the Robles train. I'm all for that. I have a sick to my stomach feeling that it's going to be Young, and I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah.
So we'll see. The one thing with that though, let's say it is Young, or even Robles for that matter, like one or the other. They're both relegated to 4th outfielder. So are they gonna? Would you put Lane in center, or would you put Rosario in center?
Lane is career. I'm always weird about why they haven't let Lane Thomas play more center field. He's so much more comfortable out there. He always plays better out there, and he doesn't have to go back on the wall as much. And that is his big problem. And like you put him in center field, and you basically remove that issue. Because like most balls that are going over a center fielder's head, they're not going to have to, they're not going to get to. It's normally going to be.
You don't have to worry about.
You're
the
just going to
wall.
have to play it off the wall. You don't have to worry about the wall as much. And he's always looked pretty good out. And I mean, like I'm not saying he's going to be an elite defender or anything, but I think he could be average, and I'll take that if he can hit.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't start very good with the bat, but he never really does.
I'm not anticipating a hot return for him.
He also never really does start well with the bat, so like. I don't know, but yeah, I'd put him in center over Rosario. Rosario is a left fielder only. Like he's been playing right field, and he's been horrible.
I only brought that up because he was literally our starting center fielder.
Yeah, I know
for opening day. So
I know it's the outfield defense is rough without Jacob Young.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's quickly touch on the rotation and the bullpen before we wrap up. The rotation, I don't have many notes on. It's Trevor Williams has been great. It is what it is with Trevor Williams. I don't like him, but
he's been good.
He's been great, and I hope that we can trade him and get something for him because that would solve a lot of problems, quite frankly. Trade Trevor Williams, get something in return, frees up a spot for Josiah Gray / Kate Cavalli / Jackson Rutledge / whoever you want to bring up.
Yeah.
Because similar to the Jacob Young argument, I don't want to punish Mitchell Parker for
you can't
doing
send
a
him
good
down.
job.
Cannot.
I love that they're skipping starts for him though, or like giving him extra days rest.
That's fine.
Because they're trying to keep him up.
Yeah, I'd 100% be down for 6-man rotation when everyone's healthy. My note would be Gore
that
today.
Helps everyone.
Because Mackenzie Gore had an excellent start. I think he ended with 8 Ks in 7 innings. And that's big. He's been in the 7th inning a couple times in his recent starts. That's a big deal. If he
sometimes at like 119 pitches though.
Yeah, but at least he's getting there because that's been his next step is getting those innings because he's been dominant on a rate basis this year. So really good stuff from him.
And Jake Irvin. Ups and downs, but overall pretty
solid. He's definitely Jake Irvin has put in more than I even thought was possible at the beginning of last year, because I just thought he was just going to be 5th starter, and that's kind of what he's been. But he's honestly been he's been like a mid rotation starter this year.
Yeah, 3-4,
and that's really good. And his fastball has very much improved. Yeah. We're going to get to a pitching breakdown with this team eventually because they've been just so much better than we anticipated.
Shout out Doolittle.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about him a lot in that for sure.
Yep. All right. Bullpen.
Pretty good this week.
Severely disappointed. Better this week, but like overall severely disappointing.
Yeah,
It's kind of. I just thought they would be so much better, but
they're okay. They're okay,
bullpens are
but
volatile.
yeah, when you compare them to our starting pitching, they don't look very good, which is crazy. It's just crazy. The starting pitching thing is just crazy to me. There was nothing indicating that this was going to be a good unit, and they are. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess I'll backtrack. Like Dylan Floro, I talked about on District Baseball. Like he was just the kind of the victim of pitching a third day in a row because Hunter Harvey was the victim of pitching a third day in a row, and so on and so forth. So it's probably just usage more than performance. So I will backtrack slightly. Kyle Finnegan has been great. Yeah, he had a blown save.
It is the same thing though. There is an A and a B bullpen. Like it's just it's very
sure.
you can tell which one is which, and that was the issue last year too. But
yeah, Jacob Barnes has been solid since he's been called up, and Tanner Rainey
and Weems have been awful, and
Weems has been bad,
so,
bad. I know that's your boy, but he's been bad.
Yeah, he's just not. Man, he had something last year, and I don't know where it went.
Yeah, relievers are volatile, man.
Yep.
All right, well, here's to hoping that the Nats do better this next week. Who do we have? We have the Braves.
4-game Braves series.
We're traveling to the Braves for 4 games, and then traveling to the Guardians immediately after.
Tough week.
What's weird is we have a night game on Thursday against the Braves, and then we play the Guardians the very next day. It's very weird scheduling. Typically, if you'll see like a day game during a weekday, so that the team can get out of there. So
weird.
Yeah.
If they can win 3 games this week, that's a huge W, I think.
If the line is 3, I'm hammering you. Just because it's a tough stretch.
Yeah, it's honestly not even. We're not even trying
to. It's
the
Nats, but it's also.
We're not even trying to talk bad about our team this time. It's just the Braves and Guardians.
The
Guardians are very good.
I didn't agree to not talk bad about this team.
Yeah, but for now, for this specific.
For now.
Yeah.
For now. All right. Well, in the meantime, be sure to follow us on Twitter at DistrictBSB, Trey at Reverse2R2S, myself at the Coach Moose. Follow us on TikTok at District Baseball. Trey putting out great shit out there every single week. And be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. Very appreciative of you all and supporting the show and everything we do. Couldn't do it without you. So be sure to check us out throughout this next week until we are back next week talking more positive, glowing reviews about the Nationals. But it's been a pleasure, Trey. It's good to be back. And in the meantime, let's go Nats.
Let's go Nats.